Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. We're talking about something that's captivated, well, basically everyone for decades, the Bermuda Triangle. But look, we're going to skip the ghost stories today. Instead, we're diving straight into the actual data, the hard science, and the real, documented history of this incredibly famous stretch of ocean.
Okay, let's dive into this. Is the Bermuda Triangle some kind of supernatural trap? Or, and hear me out here, is the reality of what happens out there in the open ocean actually way more terrifying than any of those myths? Well, to figure that out, we kind of need to start by looking at the physical space itself.
Section 1. The Unofficial Triangle. Where exactly is this place located?
So, roughly speaking, it's sitting right there in the North Atlantic Ocean. It's generally bounded by the U.S. southeast coast, Bermuda, and the Greater Antilles, places like Cuba, Jamaica, and Puerto Rico. But here's where it gets wild. Estimates for its total area range from 500,000 to over 1.5 million square miles. I mean, that is a massive, massive discrepancy. Even the physical boundaries of this vaguely triangular shape aren't completely agreed upon. So it's literally a mystery right out of the gate.
And actually, it gets even more interesting. Because despite its huge global fame, think of all the books and movies, the Bermuda Triangle doesn't actually appear on any official world maps. No way, right? The U.S. Board on Geographic Names outright refuses to recognize it as a real region of the Atlantic Ocean. We're talking about a place that, technically speaking, doesn't even exist on paper. So how on earth did an unmapped patch of water become this legendary zone of fear?
That brings us to Section 2, Birth of the Myth. Let's trace how this lore actually built up.
Let's move to the timeline, because seeing how this builds is just fascinating. People have been whispering about weird stuff since the 1800s, but the modern myth really blew up after two major military incidents. First, in March 1918, the USS Cyclops, a military ship heading to Baltimore, just disappears inside the triangle. No explanation, no wreckage. Then, fast forward to 1945, a whole squadron of American bombers, known as Flight 19, vanishes right in the airspace above it. Again, zero explanation, no wreckage. But here's the kicker. The actual phrase Bermuda Triangle, it wasn't even a thing until 1964. A pulp magazine author named Vincent Gaddis literally just coined the term. And then the whole idea spread like wildfire, especially in 1974 when Charles Berlitz wrote a massive bestseller blaming the disappearances on, wait for it, the lost city of Atlantis.
Vincent Gaddis really set the tone when he first put that phrase into print. He described it as a triangular region that has destroyed hundreds of ships and planes without a trace. I mean, wow. When you hear a quote like that, you can immediately feel the intense, spooky mood he was going for. You got to remember, he wasn't writing some peer-reviewed scientific paper. He was writing for a pulp magazine. He wanted to thrill and terrify his audience with the idea of hundreds of victims just ceasing to exist.
All right, Section 3. The hard data. Let's look at the actual numbers.
Now, what's really interesting about this is we're leaving the pulp fiction behind to look at cold, hard facts. Back in 2013, the World Wildlife Fund did this incredibly exhaustive study of global shipping lanes. They wanted to find the absolutely most hazardous waters on Earth. And the result? The Bermuda Triangle is not even in the top 10 most dangerous bodies of water for shipping. Just let that sink in for a second. Despite its massive cultural reputation as a ship graveyard, the hard data firmly pushes back on the legend.
So, you're probably wondering, why do we hear about so many accidents there then? Honestly, it's just basic math. It's about volume. The Bermuda Triangle sustains incredibly heavy daily traffic, both by sea and by air. It's literally one of the most traveled shipping lanes on the planet. When you have that kind of insane volume crossing a specific area every single day, accidents are just statistically bound to happen. The absolute crucial takeaway here is that disappearances do not happen at a higher rate in the Bermuda Triangle than in any other comparable patch of the Atlantic Ocean. The rates are actually perfectly normal.
Moving on to Section 4, Nature's True Power. Let's talk about the real dangers out there.
So, if it's not sea monsters or supernatural portals, what is causing the danger? Well, for years, people pointed to crazy compass malfunctions as absolute proof of the supernatural. But science has a totally fascinating explanation for this, the agonic line. This is basically a spot on the Earth's surface where true north and magnetic north perfectly align. That means you don't have to adjust your compass for magnetic declination. But here's the crazy part. The agonic line actually shifts over time. And guess what? It passed directly through the Bermuda Triangle right in the early 20th century.
That lines up perfectly with the time frame of those early famous disappearances, giving us a completely natural explanation for why navigators might have experienced sudden wonky compass anomalies.
And this brilliantly illustrates another huge factor: the sheer meteorological chaos of the region. The triangle gets battered by frequent tropical storms and massive, massive hurricanes. Then you throw the Gulf Stream into the mix. This is an unbelievably strong ocean current running right through the area, and it's notorious for causing incredibly sharp, sudden changes in the local weather. Basically, you've got an environment where perfectly calm blue skies can turn into a violent, terrifying tempest in literally the blink of an eye.
And let's say a ship or plane does succumb to that crazy weather. There's a very real, very terrifying reason why we might never find the wreckage. Right inside the Bermuda Triangle is the absolute deepest point in the entire Atlantic Ocean, the Milwaukee Depth. It's located within the massive Puerto Rico Trench. And guys, the ocean floor there plunges to a staggering 27,493 feet. That is over 5 miles straight down into the pitch-black abyss. When something sinks down there, it's swallowed by an environment so immense and so extreme that recovering it is basically impossible.
Which brings us to Section 5, the lingering unknowns, the details we still just don't have.
Because look, even with all our modern understanding of ocean currents and topography, we've got to admit there are still factual gaps. For one, we actually don't know the exact number of ships and planes that have gone missing there. The best estimate is somewhere around 50 ships and 20 planes. And because of that insane depth in the Puerto Rico Trench, plus the sheer power of the Gulf Stream sweeping things away, a lot of that wreckage has simply never been found. Most importantly, though, for a lot of these cases, we just don't know the exact combination of events that doomed them. Was it a freak, violent storm? Or was it just a human error from the crew? That specific mix remains a mystery.
Which leaves us with this final thought. We've completely stripped away the pulp fiction, the fake geography, and the crazy Atlantis theories. And what are we left with? A highly trafficked stretch of ocean dominated by fierce hurricanes, powerful currents, and a 27,000-foot underwater chasm. So I'm going to leave you with this question. What is actually scarier? A mythical sea monster dreamed up by a magazine writer in 1964? Or making a very real, very normal human mistake while navigating over a 5-mile deep abyss in the middle of a sudden tempest? To me, the reality of nature's power is way more awe-inspiring, and honestly, way more terrifying than any myth we could ever invent. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep asking questions and keep exploring.